Up next on The Reveal.
Every time I had to say bye to my kids, that really hurt.
A Georgia family ripped apart by the death of their son. But that's just the beginning of their nightmare.
I have to look in their bedroom. There's empty beds.
There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of confusion.
Their all-American dream is shattered. Now they're worried about a baby on the way.
It also can cause a host of potential birth defects.
That everybody that dealt with him or was around the dude that he had all this money in his pocket.
Sentenced to life in prison for a murder she says she did not commit. Could new forensic evidence lead to a new trial? From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Moral Award-winning team of investigators.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Brendan Keefe.
And I'm Faith Abube. A Georgia couple says false accusations have torn their family apart. The child welfare system disagrees and continues to investigate their case in a cloth of secrecy. But the case has lingered in the courts for 5 years, and now the family says they've had enough.
I'm recording this conversation.
This mom is making public her very private conversation with the Division of Family and Children's Services. JALISA Stanley wants to expose what she calls troubling truths about our child welfare system. She is fighting to regain custody of her 2 living children, taken by the state when her oldest died in his bed.
Every time I had to say bye to my kids, that really hurts. And I can tell that it's hurting them. I don't see how someone can sit back and allow someone else to hurt for so long.
The Stanley's son, Giovanni, had a long list of medical concerns from birth. The doctors began to wonder if something at home was making his condition worse. No one could figure it out before he died. Police ruled the parents committed no crime, but DFCS nor the attorney for the living children seemed convinced.
We have to make sure 100% that this is the best decision on behalf of these children.
That's one of the DFCS employees that agreed to take another look at how the case was being handled. The Stanleys want to know why it has lingered, forcing their children to live in separate foster homes for nearly 5 years. Their daughter removed from the Stanleys' arms when she was only a few weeks old.
And the fact that you've had a number of case managers has impacted this case very negatively.
The family can count off 6 caseworkers, the most recent accused of sitting silent in court as DFCS's own attorney blasted the parents over information she knew wasn't true.
Nobody corrected this man. The guardian ad litem goes as far as and says, well, the parents aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Maybe we should think about fines or maybe even putting them in jail. You want to say that and I did what I was instructed to do?
In the recording, DFCS promises at the next court hearing to set the record straight. But the hearing came and went. Stanley says no one said a thing.
How important do you think it is, the judge's opinion of you and your husband?
I think that is the most important thing.
And if someone's saying you openly break the rules, defy the court,
he's not going to trust us.
But neither of the parents' own attorneys stood up for them either. As The Reveal researched their case, we found a document the Stanleys say they've never seen. A document they say proves a key DFCS witness has made conflicting statements.
I need for you to ensure that your attorneys are proactive, because it doesn't sound like they've done a very good job either.
The parents have had to rely on public defenders. Stanley's most recent attorney said in an email, "I understand this is a terrible process. I came on the case late, but I will try my best to make sure the children are placed back with you." He was on the case for 7 months.
How many times have you met with him?
None. I've never seen him.
How many times have you talked to him on the phone?
None.
No bother. He, too, has decided to drop all of his indigent defense cases.
So who's your attorney now?
I have no idea.
When's your next court hearing?
I don't know.
It's a lot of I don't knows.
Yes.
State law requires a status hearing every 6 months, but there hasn't been a hearing in this case since last June. Stanley has so many questions, and what's worse, she says, so do her kids.
Mommy?
I want to go to your house. I want to go to your house, and all I can say is, I'm trying.
The Stanleys usually get to see their daughter a few hours a week, visits with their son, or twice a month. Not on a playground, but in an office, so a therapist can be present.
They have tables in it with chairs, and there's like a whiteboard in the front. There's nothing there for a child.
So they bring games, and they do their best to play things like hide and seek.
Hiding behind chairs.
Doors.
But with every visit, she is confronted with the same question. Who is our child welfare system helping if this is how it works?
It's the hardest thing I've ever had to experience. I have to look in their bedroom. There's empty beds. And I haven't shown one time that I do not care. And I just wish that we could be a family on the park like we used to be.
The court didn't even seem to realize the Stanleys needed a new attorney until I started asking questions. I'm told it's up to the judge to keep the case moving forward and that there were 2 hearings scheduled in the past year, but neither of them happened, likely because of the turnover in attorneys. Turnover that is happening again. While the Stanleys certainly hope to regain custody of their children, a family member is going through the adoption approval process in case the judge finds them unfit.
Coming up on The Reveal.
When they did my urine and blood work, they did find amphetamines in my system.
No criminal record of drug use. So how did amphetamines end up in her system?
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
A St. Louis, Missouri couple buys their dream home, only to learn their home is exposing them to meth. And now they're worried about their baby on the way. Meth may no longer be the drug of choice these days, but its lingering effects from former residents can impact your family's health years later.
I had always wanted the little safari theme.
It's the nursery ELISHA HESSEL dreamed about for the baby she desperately wanted.
I had all the little baby animals.
Earlier this year, that dream became a reality. The couple was pregnant.
And we're excited to have a baby girl. Somebody wanted a boy.
But if you want to see that dream nursery today, you have to wear a hazmat suit, gloves, and a gas mask. It turns out the HESSEL's new home used to contain a meth lab so contaminated, the HESSELs won't step foot in it.
It's just very upsetting. It was our first house.
The couple had no idea about the invisible danger inside.
And then there's French doors.
Then a routine prenatal doctor's appointment blew up their life.
When they did my urine and blood work, they did find amphetamines in my system. I did not have a way to explain that because we're not around any type of drugs.
Fearful of the health of their unborn baby girl, they began researching and talking to neighbors. They quickly found their address listed on the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office meth lab seizures database.
In the year that you lived here, did you ever have headaches or feel any weird symptoms?
I've had a lot of headaches.
Our cats had seizures.
Desperate to make their home safe again, the HESSELs hired Tom ALFORD, a certified indoor environmental consultant who has tested hundreds of meth properties. He found the home was contaminated with meth residue, and the levels were high.
It's a finer vapor, so it just kind of bleeds through and bleeds through and bleeds through.
There was a lot of crying. There was a lot of confusion.
This house is going to need all the drywall, all the flooring, all the cabinets, all the vanities, all the insulation is going to need to be removed and replaced.
We're basically contaminating ourselves, every day that we're in there, especially for the baby, so I moved out right away.
Moms can go into preterm labor. They can have growth restriction of their babies.
Dr. Jeannie Kelly at Barnes Jewish Hospital has seen what meth exposure can do.
It also can cause a host of potential birth defects.
The I-Team discovered deputies seized meth from the home in 2013, long before the HESSELs owned it. That meth was found 3 years after Jefferson County passed an ordinance to protect people against this very scenario. Jefferson County Undersheriff Tim Whitney explains.
It was very much needed. I mean, it's another tool to help our citizens. There's inhalation hazard, exposure hazards, particularly when you're talking about acids and things like that.
The ordinance states when officers find meth-making materials in sufficient quantities in a home, they're required to test the property for contamination. If it tests positive, code enforcement condemns the home, and no one can live there until it's remediated.
So they find small quantities of meth and some meth-making material. Why didn't the first responders test the property for meth?
To put it kind of in perspective, we were investigating about 300 meth labs a year. And so for them, this particular incident really wouldn't have raised a lot of red flags that manufacturing was actually happening there.
Could you ever imagine that 6 years later the home would test positive and infect an unborn child?
Yeah, it's unbelievable and really pulls at the heartstrings.
That environmental consultant we spoke with says just smoking meth in a home is enough to contaminate it for years.
The longest span I've tested is 11 and a half years, and it was positive after remediation, after it was already cleared.
We know that it's very potent, can stay in there for a really long time.
Elisha's due in mid-January. The effect on their baby girl is still a mystery. Unfortunately, the Hessels aren't the only ones waiting to see if she's healthy.
That is the one specific thing that they did say when I was speaking to the doctor's office about it, was that they would test me at labor again.
If she was still positive, then DFS would get involved, and we don't want that.
They want the life they planned, the dream home, the nursery, a healthy baby.
I mean, I'm glad through the roundabout way that we found out, because I would not want my baby here, because we could have a child here getting sick and not know why.
Elisha moved out of the home in June, and since then, she hasn't tested positive for meth. Their doctor says the baby appears to be healthy. At least 23 states have meth disclosure laws on the books, but the penalty for breaking those laws is often civil. If you want to know if your home ever contained a meth lab, the DEA does track this in a database. To find that database, go to our website at 11alive.com and look for this story. For The Reveal, I'm PJ Randhawa.
Next on The Reveal.
A bite mark.
A bite mark could send a woman away to prison for the rest of her life.
Bite mark analysis probably represents everything that is wrong in forensic science in our country today.
Welcome back to The Reveal. A woman sentenced to life in prison for murder could soon get a new trial.
Her attorneys believe there's a problem with evidence used to convict her, and they're asking a judge to set her free. The evidence is so flawed, most forensic scientists believe it should be banned from court.
With flashlights in hand, Waycross police search for clues inside a home 14 years ago. Drops of blood discovered on a kitchen wall.
I wonder if you saw that.
Bed sheets soaked in blood, and a strong odor of hydrogen peroxide. Hours before the homeowner, Eugene Garner, is nowhere to be found until a neighbor stopped by to check in.
He went in the house and he found him in there dead.
His body lying next to his own bed, strangled to death, bones in his face and nose fractured. He was 73 years old. Ruth Taylor is Garner's sister.
There was a time that, oh Lord, I didn't think I was gonna make it because my brother and I were very tight and I miss him.
Investigators found no suspicious DNA, no unfamiliar fingerprints either. A few days later, police questioned a woman who admits to having a relationship with Garner, 37-year-old Sheila Ditton.
Sheila, let me explain to you what we're going to do, okay?
But she's not interested in talking.
Sheila, I'm Detective Woods, okay? How you doing? You need to wake up. You take this swig of drink.
I'm not talking until tomorrow.
During a forensic exam, something catches detectives' eyes on one of Ditton's arms. A scar they believe looks like a bite mark.
Sheila, let me see your hands. Put your hands up here on the table for me, would you?
During Garner's autopsy, investigators discover something too. Another scar they also believe is a bite mark. On August 13th, 2004, police charged Ditton with Garner's murder. Former District Attorney Rick Curry originally prosecuted Ditton's case. He cited the bite marks as supporting evidence for her conviction.
I think a jury would look at it and say, yeah, that's probably, yeah, she did that.
A bite mark.
Garner's son, Ricky Allen, believes his mother is innocent.
How can you say that someone killed someone off of a bite mark?
that don't necessarily say that you killed the person.
No research has been published.
Chris Fabricant is an attorney with the Innocence Project.
Bite mark analysis probably represents everything that is wrong in forensic science in our country today.
The majority of forensic scientists agree. In 2016, this report by the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology found bite mark analysis does not meet the scientific standards for foundational validity, calling it subjective, and that examiners cannot identify the source of bite marks with reasonable accuracy. Since 2005, at least 31 defendants incarcerated for bite mark evidence have been exonerated or had their indictments dismissed. That includes ALFORD Swinton.
Freedom! Freedom! It feels so good.
This past March, a judge released Swinton after DNA evidence found he was not the source of bite marks related to a 1991 homicide. He spent 18 years in prison for a crime he did not commit.
Right now, freedom, and thank God for the Innocence Project, every last one, and thank God, period.
Every single case that the Innocence Project has put its hands on in the last 5 years, every single one of those clients have ultimately been released from prison. And we can't incarcerate somebody for a lifetime based on subjective speculation masquerading as science, and that's exactly what happened to Miss Denton.
Do you truly believe the jury would have convicted her without that bite mark testimony?
Yes. He didn't testify that, in my professional opinion, this bite mark was made by Sheila Denton. He said it was probably.
But when a juror hears from someone that you guys are deeming an expert, and he says, I probably think it's her that bit him and vice versa, that's got to be pretty compelling.
Yeah, but he probably means probably.
This past November, Loudon Brown filed a motion to ask a judge to grant Denton a new trial. In his brief, he included testimony from 5 other forensic dentists who reviewed Denton's case. All of them concluded the scars were either not bite marks at all or inconclusive at best.
Do you think your mom got a fair trial?
Not at all.
Every single scientific entity that has looked at bite mark analysis has come to precisely the same conclusion. It's garbage. It should not be used in court.
Where does this case stand now?
It's still pending, and it has been for almost a year.
And Andy, are defendants still getting out of prison because of this flawed bite mark evidence?
You know, since we told you about Denton's case about a year ago, one person has been released from prison, and a prosecutor in Oregon admitted that using bite mark evidence should not have been permitted in a defendant's trial. Both were murder cases.
If you have a news tip or comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Here now, a preview of an investigation coming up Thursday night at 11 on Up Late. A hero cop kicked off the force.
If they're doing this to me, what else are they getting away with?
He saved a life and they took his badge.
It shows that they don't care. They don't care.
Why is his diagnosis nearly identical to other Atlanta officers also found unfit for duty?
That's just cruel.
Thanks for watching The Reveal, the nation's only weekly local investigative show.
We'll see you next Sunday for The Reveal.